Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now generally speaking, the balance between civilizations is pretty damn solid in Age of Empires 2. Listen, we have 45 civilizations and each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. They have some maps and some settings that they're proficient at and other maps and settings where they're a little bit, lackluster. But all the civilizations have something going for them. There could be some civilizations that are overall stronger and some that are overall weaker, but that's just the nature of the game. We have 45 civs, it's bound to have some discrepancies. However, right now there's only one civilization that kind of stands out from the pack as being a little too strong, or at least stronger than the rest of the civilizations, and I consider it to be the strongest civ in the game across a various group of settings, but especially on 1v1 Arabia. The civilization I'm talking about is the Georgians. Now the Georgians is a civilization that's part of the most recent DLC, and before you go ahead and accuse Microsoft of making the game pay to win, I really don't think that's a very fair argument or a very fair way to kind of attack their DLCs and kind of make it seem like they're selling the civilization strong on purpose. Remember, Microsoft released a DLC containing Dravidians, and I think that settles that entire debate. And in fact, the Georgians were not even that strong on release. Listen, they were really good, but they weren't as they are right now. They actually received a couple buffs that make them very strong that have only toned down a little bit recently. But the current state of Georgians definitely feel like pretty much the strongest civ in the game, or at least has a very strong claim towards that. Let me go ahead and do a civilization breakdown and explain to you exactly why I believe that they are currently the strongest civ in the game. Now, number one, they have an amazing early game. This is due to the fact that they start with a free mule cart. Now, the mule cart is basically a hybrid between a lumber camp and a mining camp, and it can move around and has decent, line of sight. Now, starting with a free mule cart sounds like it just saves you a lumber camp from the early game, which is not that big of a deal, but it actually has a lot of hidden bonuses and a lot of hidden applications. Number one, the mule cart will start under your TC and it can be used to scout. You don't need to send it to woodland right away. You can just scout with it and find your sheep or whatever it is you may need. On top of that, you're actually able to get the feudal age with the Georgians without taking a single bit of wood in the early game. You don't need to chop a single tree to get the feudal age at a very, very fast time. In fact, one of the best builders in the game is something I offer to all of my Twitch supporters and Patreon members. Okay, sorry to sell out, but realistically, the 17 pop Georgian no loom scout opening is actually one of the best builders in the entire game, and it's one of the strongest strategies out there because it gets you to a really fast feudal age and it also gets you there with a solid economy, which not a lot of civilizations can do in the game. So this strong early game, along with the fact that you have basically two scouts, and on top of that, your scouts will start healing in feudal age, so you can use your scout in Dark Age to go scout your opponent, potentially even lame their elephant or lame their boar, and then heal all that lost HP as you've been stealing their boar in feudal age is such a huge advantage to have in the early game. There's basically an impossibility of having a bad start with Georgians. There's no way that that will happen. Your start is basically guaranteed to be good, and if you do learn a sharp builder, you will always get the feudal age first and always have the upper hand, which is insane, especially for open map 1v1s. Now, past their Dark Age, they also happen to have a very decent feudal age as well. Starting off, they obviously have the mule cart, which makes their wood economy a little bit more efficient, but they also have healing scouts, which is super hard to deal with, especially the higher elo you go, because healing units tend to have more impact the better the player is, because he's going to be able to run back low HP units, he's going to be able to really maximize this bonus, and also make it hard for his opponent to kill his scouts, as he'll always be able to run away with them. Now, healing units does not sound great in the context of just fighting, because they heal very slowly. So obviously, if you have a healing scout versus a scout with +1 attack, the +1 attack scout will win the engagement every single time. But where it gets tricky is where you can fight and trade with your healing scouts, and as soon as they get low HP, run them back, have them scout the entire rest of the map, or just have them be in the back line of fights until they heal back up, and then you can use them again and again and again. And this playstyle with the Georgians lets you do insane things. It lets you run under your opponent's DC and try to snipe farm villagers, and if you get hit by his DC because he garrisons, no worries, you're just going to heal that off anyways. And so you get into a position where your opponent almost has to make scouts or has to full wall his base if he wants to kill even a single one of your scouts, because any other unit, archer, spear, men-at-arms, skirm, all of those units can't forcibly kill a scout. Like, if someone's chasing you and you have your scout there, even if it's on 1 HP, you can run away from all of those units. You don't have to take the engagement. And so with the Georgians, you can pick your battles, and when the battle is not convenient for you, you can run away and get free value by healing up your cav. This feudal age with healing scouts, combined with the fact that you're going to be getting to feudal age faster and having the momentum, is such a nice early game power spike for the Georgians, and pretty much gets you advantage going into castle age in every single one of your games. And on top of that, when we get to the castle age, it's insane. Like, their castle age is generally insane. First of all, they get extra healing on all their cav, and now they get to make cav archers and knights, and all of those get healing as well. So not only do you have healing scouts and light cav, scav, but now also healing knights and healing cav archers. On top of that, they get access to the fortified church, which is insane for defense and economy. The fortified churches for Georgians will boost their villagers by 10% work rates in an 8-tower radius. So the church will not only be a great defensive tool and a monastery they can build monks out of and garrison relics and whatnot, but it's also a defensive structure that will shoot arrows and let you garrison mule carts and villagers in. It's such a strong building to have in Castle Age and really holds down the position. And I know you want me to talk about the Manaspa, but let's talk about that in the Imperial Age. So as you have a nice Castle Age and really strong economy and also really good units, once you get into Imperial Age, that's when the Civ really gets online. Yes, this is a good late game Civ. In fact, one of the best late game Civs out there. And the reason for this is mainly due to how broken Manaspas are. Manaspa is their unique unit, and the raw stats of this thing are insane to begin with. But on top of their raw stats, they're actually going to get extra attack the more Manaspa you combine them with. So the more Manaspa you have in your army, the more attack you have, up to a +4 attack. And I think you need like 24 or 26 of these units to get that amount of attack. But regardless, getting extra attack the more Manaspa you have is a nice added bonus. Regardless of how much you get, even if you get just a +1, it's going to be extra stats that you wouldn't have without getting that bonus. So the more Manaspa you have, the better they perform is generally speaking a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. And the best part about Manaspa is just simply how cheap they are. For context, a knight will cost you 60 food and 75 gold, and a Manaspa will cost you 60 food and 45 gold. However, Manaspa aside, the Georgian late game is still really strong. They get access to really strong heavy siege with siege engineers, siege ram, and siege onager in there. And on top of that, they also get heavy scorpion, so you're really not missing any siege except the bombard cannon. They also have a really strong blacksmith getting all tech except the ring archer armor, fully upgraded champs, fully upgraded halberdier, and fully upgraded hussar. They also get hand cannoneer in case you're missing that, and they get reasonable upgrades on a cav archer, only missing a thumb ring and last archer armor from the blacksmith. So as you can see, as far as options, Georgians are really not missing those in the late game either. It's pretty much, like I said, just the bomber cannon and maybe arbalest and thumb ring that are going to be techs you'll be missing. And missing paladin is really not the biggest of deals because you get access to Manaspa, which is most of the time the better version of a paladin anyways. And on top of just having a really strong run through the ages, they also have a lot of little bonuses and little techs that come in handy when they are needed. Like for example, the unique techs are both very relevant. Svan Towers, their Castle Age unique tech, the Silver Crown, gives defensive buildings +2 attack and also lets them fire piercing arrows so they operate like scorpions. Let me put it simply, Svan Towers are insane. They perform incredibly well and are great at pushing in and locking down areas, and are also really good on defense as well. This is mainly seen in Black Forest when you can spam Svan Towers and you have infinite gold because you're trading in a late game with 2 or 4 players on your team, whatever the case may be. Having that trade set up lets you get pretty much infinite stone over time, so spamming those Svan Towers is going to be insane to push and also hold your trade route. Their other unique tech, as Nori Cavalry in Imperial Age, makes cavalry units take 15% less population space, and this tech is incredibly handy for 1v1s, especially where it's all about population efficiency in late game. And let's say you have 100 cavalry on the field, which is a bit excessive, you're not going to get up there, but you'd have an extra 15 population space. For context, Goths get an extra 10 population space in Imperial Age, and even that feels very overwhelming at times. Well, Georgians can get a very similar situation, except they get it with cavalry and not just a raw +10, which is a bit worse but a bit better depending on how many cavalry are on the field. But needless to say, this bonus applying to hussars, Manaspa, heavy CA, and cavalier just makes their late game extremely flexible, and you can basically pick your cavalry of choice and get the nice benefit. And lastly, when it comes to the little niche bonuses, they happen to have a really convenient combination of units and buildings receiving 15% less damage when fighting from a higher elevation, and on top of that having the T bonus that makes repairing buildings cost 25% less resources. These two bonuses in conjunction make it so holding a castle on a hill is incredibly easy. You take less damage and it's cheaper to repair, so holding a castle and repairing forever is one of the Georgians' game plan to raid you to death and hold the castle on the hill in the meanwhile. And one of the last things I want to talk about here is that the Georgians just happen to be insane for all settings. Like on 1v1s, both open and closed maps, they're insane. On team games, both open and closed maps, Arabia's or Black Forest or arenas, they're also also very good and have a lot of things going for them. And they're even good on hybrid maps, like not pure water maps because their water texture is not great, but hybrid maps where they need to play a little bit of water early or need to add some fishing ships. Georgians are also really good in those settings because starting with a free mule cart lets you get your dock earlier, and getting a dock earlier leads to better economy and a better early game. And on top of that, they're really good on nomad style maps because as soon as you make your town center, you get the mule cart, which acts as a scout, letting you find boars and sheep nearby. In every setting, the Georgians are good, and in some settings, they are the best in the game. And this is why I believe that currently they are the strongest civilization in the game, but not by a big margin. And I want to make that emphasis clear because this video is not calling for all kinds of nerfs. Like, oh, this civilization is unbeatable. The devs have to remove Manaspa and replace it with the Karambit warrior. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's a strong civilization, perhaps the strongest, but I think just a couple small nerfs will make it extremely reasonable and bring it back to level playing field. And even as is, if we don't get any nerfs, I still think there are a few counters to the Georgians and a few matchups that give them a hard time. So it's not a civilization that is completely and utterly broken. It's just one that stands out from the rest of the pack. Let me know if you agreed on some of these takes, and let me know if I missed something or if you disagree on anything. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check me out on Twitch for my live streams and on Patreon for all of my guides and my build orders, including the one for Georgians. Links to both of those in the description below. And thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.